My guest tonight, Reverend Shawn Whittington, is going to share his experiences as an exorcist, and he's going to tell us how he became one. We'll be right back. Grab your popcorn and snacks, find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust, turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing? I hope you said fine. My name is Charlotte. I'm going to be your host for the next hour. I'm also the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team based out of Sacramento, California. We are 45 strong up and down the state, which means if you think you have a paranormal need, we can get to you. It might take us a while. California is like this huge state. People don't realize how large the state actually is, but we will get to you. And in the case that we can't get to you, we do have mediums on staff who can phone you and talk with you, and if it turns out that whatever's going on is paranormal, in most cases they can settle down the energy until we can get out there. But again, it doesn't take us more than 1 or 2 days. That being said, if you're watching from Facebook tonight, a lot of you are, and you haven't done so already, please hit that follow button, always looking for followers, and do share us. Share us around during the show, especially if you like what you see here. Also, show me some love. Leave me a thumbs up, leave me a happy heart, leave me a happy face, and chat amongst yourselves in the chat room, because that helps as well. Okay? Let's talk about YouTube. YouTube, I've got more than 1,000 videos sitting over there, and they're all of this show. Every last one of them is this show here. But they're all different topics. I'm a journalist, photojournalist, so I like to change it up every so often. So I might have, one day we might be talking UFOs, UAPs. Next day we might be talking with a guest like my guest tonight. And then the day after that we might be talking about an unsolved murder or something like that. I like to vary it. So check all that out. And I know it can be mind-boggling to look at it. So I have started, it's taken me a while to do this, I have started doing separate files for different topics. So if you're into ghosts, if you're into demonic, the demonic deliverance and all that, there's a file for that. All you have to do is go in and click on that, see the shows that we've done, and you can pick and choose what you want to watch. So I've made it a lot easier. Because you know what? It even gives me a headache to look at my own page over YouTube. And for those of you that might be viewing from somewhere else, Facebook, maybe you're having trouble, you can go to my YouTube page at youtube.com/@CaliforniaHauntsRadio and find us over there as well during our lives. We're also broadcasting tonight on Twitch, which I'm real happy with. And, all this social media stuff works about the same way. Like with you, just like I said with Facebook, hit the follow button. YouTube, hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Chat amongst yourselves in the chat room. Leave me a thumbs up. Same thing with Twitch. The thing is that by doing that, if you guys ever wondered, when you're scrolling down your Facebook page and you see all those suggestions come up, about midway down, maybe a little more, that's the For You stuff. That's where that whole thing is. When you see some of these hashtags that are put on TikTok videos and things like that say FYP page, that is the For You page. So what that is, it's when you interact with me, either by being in the chat room, chatting amongst yourself, and doing all that, and the happy faces. When you interact with me, that gets the master computer's attention, and then they put me out on what they call the FYP page, so that way we get seen by more people. Okay? All right. But the main key here, and you guys always hear me say this at the end of the show, is, if you like the show, share it with 5 people. Yeah. Well, that's what I like to say at the beginning now, too. If you like the show and you're watching it, and there's somebody in your house, your family, or a friend that you think might be interested in the show, feel free to share it, because we're trying to get as many people possible to watch the show. That's the whole key of doing these things, right? To put the word out and help people out. Okay? So, so please do that. Share. Hit that share button. Okay, that being said, I'm excited about my guest. Very excited. As a paranormal investigator over the years, I've seen a trend change that's happened. I've been doing this for 18 years, and I remember in the beginning when you would go into somebody's house and talk to them about their ghosts. There wasn't that much demonic. There was never that much thought of demonic stuff going on. And I think TV, because with TV, they just don't want the nicey ghosts. In fact, I've been asked by several TV shows about cases that we've done. And, in 18 years, I have probably seen, I would say, 4 or 5 cases that involve demonic activity. That's 18 years of cases and hundreds of cases. It used to be very, very rare. But I know I know I've been reading stuff online where there's an increase in this stuff. But I also think that TV shows have also caused a lot of this. And I'm not talking about the shows like the one my guest is on, because he's out to help people. That's what he does. He's an exorcist. I'm talking these shows that want to focus on that dark forces just to get ratings. That's the stuff I'm talking about. The problem with that is that when something starts happening in people's houses, they automatically think it's a demon. And I know I get calls all the time about, come out and do a cleansing on my house. And I said, well, why? She says, oh, because I know this is a demon. And I said, well, how do you know that? So, and then I don't do we don't do a cleansing until we do a thorough investigation to find out what's going on in these houses. You can't just walk into somebody's house and, and start doing the sage blessing or whatever. You just can't do that. You have to figure out what you're dealing with before you even begin to do that. It's a disservice. So anyway, back to Reverend Shawn Whittington. I'm impressed by what he does. I've been watching the show he's been on. I love that stuff. I love to see how the churches handle this stuff, because when it comes down to it, ghost hunters, unless they're ordained or trained by the churches, really have no business doing these types of cases. We're just here to take the notes. And hand them off to the exorcist and say, look, this is what's been going on. This is what we found when we were out there. Here's the notes. And then let them do their job. Okay? Because it's important. They're the ones that are trained to do this stuff, not me. I'm not trained to do this stuff. And I have done cases where I have come home from just dealing with minor demons, where I have come home and been scratched on both my arms. And then even at my house where they come home with me. So yeah, I have the utmost respect for what this gentleman does. Let me bring him on and we get the show started, and let's talk about this stuff. Good evening.
Hi, Charlotte. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I couldn't be any better. I'm on your show with you tonight.
I'm excited about that. Tell us about you, sir. I know a lot of people know who you are. They don't know about you, right?
Well, let me ask you something real quick. Did you
Sure.
actually got a chance to watch the show?
I have.
Did you really enjoyed it?
I love it.
Good for you. Good for you. I'm glad you did. I like to hear
I love
that.
it. I
We're
like
still,
any show. Well, I like any show where, like you and James Long and all those guys are going out to help people. Anything like that I love. Anything to be an aid to people. Because the ones I can't stand are the ones that are all built up and hyped, and then nothing really gets done, but somebody gets possessed. Well, I'm not going to mention the show name, but we all know. Somebody gets possessed every show, yada, 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 yada.
well, you and I have a lot in common, because I also started with my wife a little over 20 years ago, just trying to have fun, ghost hunting, ghost busting, doing paranormal investigations. And, I had done it for many, many years, even before I met my wife, and I never ran into anything extremely dark or malevolent. And I didn't even really give it much thought. And probably the first 15 years my wife and I were doing it together, never any really dark cases. So that's what you and I have in common. But when it shows up like gangbusters, and you're never prepared, and you're never ready. My wife and I weren't ready, and that took its toll on us, and it came at great cost. So, but I agree with you. Right now, it seems like every show, everybody that calls me, it can just be Aunt Betty or Uncle Tom hanging around the house, that they don't want to, they passed on recently and they don't want to move on, and they're freaking the family out. And the family, nowadays, everybody thinks everything is demonic. And I agree with you. It's a lot of the TV shows.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How did you get involved in the TV show you're on?
That's a very interesting story. I think God laid it in my lap for a reason. And I'll try to make the story as short as I can. A friend of mine back east by the name of Joni Mahan, you may have heard of her. She's a very popular paranormal author. She got a call one day from a gentleman. Um, he told her he was a producer. She didn't believe him. He's working on a show about demonic possession and exorcism, and did she know any people that he should talk to? Well, she
Mhm.
said the funny thing was, I could only think of you. So I gave him your name and number, but I said, let me call him first, make sure it's okay for you to reach out to him. So she reached out to me and I said, does he seem legit? And she goes, it's hard to tell. I'll let you decide. But you know how it is. All these people call you all the time, say they're
Mhm.
working on a show. So she got back to him, told him, yeah, you can call Shawn. He called me, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't think he was legitimate.
Mhm.
But I listened to his story, and I first told him that I wasn't interested because I didn't think, if he was legitimate, I didn't think he could do a good show about demonic possession and exorcism and not just make the church look, silly or just be just a bad show. I didn't think
Mhm.
it could be done. So him and I spoke 2 or 3 times, and I started to realize he was legit. He had good vision. I did a little homework on him, some background checks on him, and I realized he was with a legitimate production company, and he was tied in with Travel Channel, and so I started buying into what he was talking about. I thought his vision was really spot on. I said I thought if they could pull this off, it should be pretty good. At least, even if nobody enjoys the show,
Mhm.
something that everybody involved in can be proud of, which we all are.
Mhm.
So then I just went up the ladder. The next person above him I was introduced to, and we spoke. And I spoke to 2 or 3 more people and kind of worked my way up the chain of command. And this all happened like before the pandemic. So I know the show just aired last year, so that just goes to show
Mhm.
you how slow sometimes these TV projects can take to come together. It took a long time. The downside of that was when they finally greenlit it, we had about 12 weeks of shooting to do in like 2 weeks. So the
Wow.
filming was very, very hard. We were on the set from like sun up to sundown, 5 days a week. It was a hard shoot, but we're all really proud of it. We think
Mhm.
it turned out great. Um, we cross our fingers and hope it goes to a season 2. They haven't greenlit it for a season 2 yet, but they
Mhm.
haven't canceled it either. So we're still hoping. But I'm really glad that you enjoyed it because
Absolutely.
we're all proud of it, and I think it was very well done.
Absolutely. I've known James Long for years, and that's what got me over there because I thought, okay, he's got a show. I'm going to watch this, and then I saw you, and you guys really do a great job. And that's like I said, I believe that we're in this business, whether you're an exorcist, I'm a ghost hunter. My goal in this business is to help and educate people about the paranormal. And I don't like it when these other groups just come in and they're doing it for fun, right? I just don't like that stuff. That's why I like shows like yours. That's why I'll watch, I don't watch a lot of them. I watch Paranormal, like 911, because those are trained those are police officers and firefighters, and they're trained to observe. So I appreciate that a lot more. But there is a line, and I knew this even before getting into this, growing up Catholic. There is a line between, what I do and what the church can, what the church can offer and do for people. There's a definite line there, and I don't want to knock down, anybody out there doing cleansings, but I mean, I was taught growing up, and probably you were, because you grew up in the Catholic Church, right?
Hmm.
I think I read that. I was taught growing up that that is the final say. When you come up involved with something dark like that, that's who you go to. Those are the guys. Those are the trained guys. So I was always brought up that way. But it's not taking away from John Zaffis or anybody like that. But still, that's my first thing is I go out, gather up all the facts I can about the case, and then I'll make then I'll present to the local priest or the local diocese and say, look, this is what I have. I'm giving it to you guys because this is what I think has to go down. So I have a lot of respect.
Thank you very much. It's there's many reasons I believe why the show got dumped in my lap. One was I
Mm-hmm.
know that God wanted everybody that was involved in that show. He wanted those messages and those stories out there, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just an ordained Christian minister at the time, and I
Mm-hmm.
belonged to a different exorcist organization. So I had James and Bishop James and I hit it off. We became good friends on the set. And it wasn't, when I was growing up, my mother used to ask me all the time what I wanted to be when I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
And I would tell her all these dumb things that I wanted to be. But she would say, I think you should be a priest. And I thought that was the silliest thing anybody could ever tell me.
Mm-hmm.
And here it was. We were all done with the show. We were all getting ready to go back home. And Bishop Long approached me in a trailer and said, I think you have a pure heart, and I think you would make a great priest. Have you ever thought about doing that?
Mm-hmm.
So when I didn't tell him at the time, but when he was saying that to me, I could actually see my mother's face on his face, and she
Wow.
was Brazilian, so I could hear her heavy Brazilian accent coming through his mouth saying that to me, and I knew then that was the real reason why
Mm-hmm.
I got that show was to meet him and to get offered to enter the seminary and become a Catholic priest, which I did. And so the rest is history, as they say. So there's, God, it is true, God works in mysterious ways,
Mm-hmm.
but I believe that that was ultimately the real reason why that show landed in my lap.
Absolutely. What type of preparation do you go through? Is the preparation as a Catholic priest is different than the preparation you went through when you were a minister to do these kinds of cases?
I'm going to say in a big way, yes. I think many of the things I did as a ordained Christian exorcist
Mm-hmm.
probably weren't, and sometimes I tend to think outside the box, or when in Rome, I take a when in Rome approach sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was very lucky.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was only because I had um God on my side that got me through a lot of the cases that I worked. What I decided to do, who enters the seminary at the age of 60? I'm 64 now.
Right.
And I knew that if I didn't turn the page temporarily on the paranormal and just concentrate on my seminary studies, then I probably wouldn't have gotten through it. So I
Mm-hmm.
did that. I turned the page on the paranormal, put all the cases aside, refer every case that came into me, demonic or disembodied human spirit cases. I just referred them out. I just concentrated on my studies.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm in this dilemma. I want to enjoy for a little while just being a Catholic priest,
Mm-hmm.
but I keep getting called back into um, the exorcism field. And my wife
Mm-hmm.
says, "Well, duh, that's your gift of discernment is in that field, and that's what you do. You were meant to do this, called to do this." So I'm now getting ready to jump in the deep end without the floaties on and really delve
Mm-hmm.
into um, all of that approach, the Catholic approach to the rite, and what all goes behind that. It's a lot of theology, a lot of demonology, and many different approaches. But there's many different similarities too. It's like when a case comes my way, I was already sending out intake forms. They do that. I was
Mm-hmm.
already telling clients, I have a set of prayers that I want you to say every
Mm-hmm.
morning, noon, and night for 2 weeks, and let's have this discussion again.
Mm-hmm.
If they aren't already Catholic, I want them to go to a non denominational Christian church or Christian church, whatever they choose, get
Mm-hmm.
baptized. If they are Catholic, I want them to go to confession, start going back to Mass, receive communion as often as possible, and in a
Mm-hmm.
couple of weeks we'll talk. So there were many similarities. I used the right.
Mm-hmm.
I realize now that there was probably some things that I could probably have done better and different, but I'm going to learn all that now. And
Mm-hmm.
so it looks like I'll probably be getting a pretty heavy dose of that training coming real soon now.
Now, you mentioned, and this is something that happened in my team, when you opened yourself up to doing this work, all of a sudden it was like you had a number on your forehead, because all of a sudden the cases for that sort of thing come flooding in. I remember we were able to get a shaman on staff that was cleansing houses and stuff. And no sooner did she start up than we found that phone was ringing off the hook with these darker cases. There's just one after another after another another. And then when she left the team, then everything slowed back down. But it's like God or the universe or whatever realizes that you're doing this stuff, handling this stuff, and they're going to give you this stuff.
Yes, it just floods in. I wake up every morning, I kid you not, and I pray that I never have to take or assist in or
Mm-hmm.
take authority over another exorcism again. It's a very scary, very ugly thing.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, I think half of the calls I get are clients needing help. Some of them, like you said, think it's demonic and it's not.
Mm-hmm.
But half of the people call me, and it's probably a lot of what they see on TV.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be an exorcist.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like when someone calls me and says I'm possessed, I know 99.999% of the time they're not, because the demon would never allow them to say that. It's the
Absolutely.
same with these people when they call and say, I just want to be an exorcist. Teach me how to be an
Mm-hmm.
exorcist. I just tell them, no, you don't. Um, I don't even want to be one. You're usually called to it. Something happens. You receive some type of divine intervention, as I did. My wife and I worked a very ugly case. Thought it was just, you know, um, a very upset, disembodied human spirit. It turned out to be
Mm-hmm.
something much worse.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know how to handle it. It
Mm-hmm.
followed us home. It turned our life upside down.
Yep.
We were both under attack. My wife was the primary target of that. And it was a very, very ugly situation. And that's how I got into the field. Literally, I got drug into the field kicking and screaming because I didn't know what I was doing. And I just like to warn people that it may be rare, but these things do exist and you have to be careful. And
Mm-hmm.
most of my cases, and you probably get this too, are ghost hunters.
Mm-hmm.
They're new to the field. They didn't get any training. They went out and just winged it, found
Mm-hmm.
themselves at the wrong place at the wrong time,
Yep.
saying and doing the wrong thing. They end up with an attachment. Um, they provoked too much. They poked the wrong bear with the wrong
Mm-hmm.
stick, and now they have problems. So I like to like you. I like to educate people and let them know that this stuff is very real. Be careful. Respect the location, respect the ghosts. They're just people that don't have a body any longer. So
Mm-hmm.
respect them. Don't provoke, and don't go in um, thinking you're invincible. If you're up against something that
Mm-hmm.
seems very malevolent or worse, you should gracefully bow out of that situation for the protection of not only yourself, but your family, your team.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it's just a location where people seem to go and ghost hunt, probably not a whole lot you can do there. But if it's someone's home that they've called you in for help, the most important thing is don't make things worse,
Mm-hmm.
and then get them the help they need. If you don't aren't trained, get those people the help that they need.
Absolutely. Did one home out in Yolo County, and the family was Catholic, and they were taking care of their sick son. It was an older couple. And when we went out there, he kept going, well, it's a demon. I know it's a demon, that we have in the house. So we do our first walk through the house. And they've got nothing on the walls but blessed icons. And I'm looking around, so I come back in and I said, well, I got good news and bad news for you. And he says, well, what's that? I said, I don't think you're dealing with a demon. Well, why is that? I said, because those icons wouldn't be there. It's not going to tolerate blessed icons on the walls, you know. And he says, well, then what are we dealing with? And it turned out it was, he had a brain tumor.
Oh,
So he was causing a lot of poltergeist activity in the house.
wow.
But, I mean, the look I got when I said, if there was a demon in here, you've got like 50, 60 of these blessed icons on the walls plus statues. They're not going to be there. So, I mean, it's stuff like that. But like you say, you have to really go in and sort through everything to see what you're dealing with.
That's very interesting. I've dealt some poltergeist cases,
Hmm.
and I'd never heard the brain tumor one. That's very interesting. That
Yeah.
must have been pretty intense. I yeah, you got to be careful. I find out usually in this intake form, there's a part where the people they're not always honest with me. Sometimes
Right.
I find out after the fact,
That thing too. Yeah.
but I usually find out if the person has been clinically diagnosed with a mental illness and if they're under the care of a physician and on medications. Usually our hands are tied and we can't proceed
Hmm.
beyond that. Not to say that some of these people, I have dealt with many people that have been clinically diagnosed with a mental illness that I do believe are truly, they're extremely oppressed, not
Hmm.
quite yet possessed yet, but extremely
Hmm.
oppressed. And I remember the last 2 years of my mother's life and last year of my father's life when they were in medical facilities. I used
Hmm.
to go in with a hat that looked just like yours, but I had my old team name on there. And some of these nurses would come up to me afterwards and ask me, "Is your hat just a joke or is it for real?" I go, "No, it's my. I'm a paranormal investigator." They go, "You should come here sometime in the middle of the night. This place is haunted off the charts, but we do believe that there's some people here that are like in the psych ward that we believe, even though they are clinically diagnosed
Hmm.
schizophrenic or what have you, something else, that we do believe there's some possession cases going on here." So I think that's possible too. And it's really sad when you can't help those people for legality reasons.
Hmm.
Um, but that happens more and more too. I come across that more and more too. It's sad when you can't proceed. So
Hmm.
I just tell people all the time, just get the proper help. Don't be
Hmm.
too proud to take this type of stuff on by yourself and get the appropriate help for these people. But I applaud you for being it. A lot of teams nowadays they don't want to go inside somebody's home
Hmm.
and help. It's a big difference between going to the Goodfield
Yes. Yes.
hotel and
Hmm.
going into somebody's home. And that's completely different training too. So I applaud you and your team for doing that. It's totally different.
I can honestly say that's it took like 5 years before we got our first residential case, and I can honestly say everybody on my team we sat down because you're scared of it. You're dealing with somebody's mental state. Even when you go into somebody's house, it's a huge responsibility, and so we were scared the first few times. The first few times, in fact, I ended up designing 101 questionnaire. It's similar to what you have. Is there any infighting going on in the house? Are you on any medications? Are you seeing a psychologist? So it's all on there. And I do have
Yeah.
nurses and I have psychologists on staff as well for these situations. But still, I mean, you're dealing with somebody's life, and that's what's scary about it when
Yeah,
you
you
log
have
these
to
things.
a lot of these forms, people will send me forms and go, "Is there anything I should add to this?"
Hmm.
First thing I look for is get the family to sign off,
Hmm.
not making you responsible for anything that may happen. Let's say they have an old home and there's
Hmm.
parts of the floor that need repair and you step through it and cause a hole. Now they want you
Yep.
to pay to have it repaired.
Right.
Um, you have to get signed off on that, and you have to get everybody to say, you know, uh, they're agreeing that they reached out to you and that they gave you permission to enter their property and do an investigation
Hmm.
as you see fit, and that you're not going to hold them responsible for anything. And then sometimes the ghosts will, like these poltergeist cases, you get something that gets thrown across the room and broken of
Hmm.
value, and now the
Hmm.
people want to. Well, if you weren't here to cause it to be upset to throw the glass, it wouldn't
Hmm.
have happened. So I would like that replaced. I know some of that stuff's petty, but it
Hmm.
happens, and you
Yes,
got
it
to
does.
be prepared for that stuff too.
Absolutely. Question in the chat rooms: how would you know that you have an attachment?
You mm, there's so many different reasons. First of all, they're everywhere and they're always watching. And they do play by rules. That's the only thing that saves us many times.
Hmm.
But if you break the rules, and you may break the rules and not even know that you did it. But usually when I find people that I do believe truly have an attachment. Most of the time, they're either a paranormal investigator and they've gone somewhere, they were at the wrong place at the wrong time, they said and did the wrong thing, they provoked when they shouldn't, and they ended up with an attachment. Sometimes you do it in different ways. You play with the Ouija board. I know I'm going to get hate mail for this,
Oh yeah.
but I've had extremely bad results from playing with Ouija boards, so I don't recommend them and I don't play with them anymore.
Mhm.
But you've done that, or you've engaged in conjuring. You've done a lot of seances, or I'm going to get hate mail for this too. I have a lot of friends who are witches and pagans, and they do a lot of conjuring and things of that nature, but they don't pervert that into casting spells
Right.
against people's, or inviting the demonic into their life to
Mhm.
help them uh, in their pursuits of things,
Mhm.
because then you have a price to pay. But
Mhm.
a lot of these people, they do things and they give these entities the feeling that they were given permission to enter their lives.
Mhm.
So you need, again, if you think that you have an attachment, you need to get trained personnel to come over and interview you and spend
Mhm.
some time with you and find out if you truly do, because it's going to be hard for a person to determine if they do or not.
Mhm.
But usually I tell people, if you're seeing shadows out of the corner of your eyes, if you're, you know, constantly getting bombarded with ice cold spots in your home, you're getting a lot of night terrors when you sleep when you didn't have that before.
Mhm.
Your health is just, you were a very healthy person one day, now all of a sudden you're always sick. You're
Mhm.
always weak. You're always sickly. You don't like the friends that you used to like anymore. You don't want to go out. You want to kind of become a recluse and hide out.
Mhm.
All those types of things can be the signs of attachment. Now, these attachments can just be disembodied human spirits. They don't have to be demonic.
Mhm.
Usually, the demonic will not let you even come to the realization that perhaps that's what you're dealing with.
Mhm.
They're very skillful at hiding that from the person that they're targeting. And so that person will never even, until it's too late, they won't even have any idea that that's what's going on in their life. But if you have a disembodied human spirit that is attached to you, usually uh, things will happen that will throw up a red flag and give you a warning sign that perhaps you need to reach out to. You can go to a doctor first, and
Mhm.
maybe the doctor will go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and maybe they will find another reason for what's happening with you, and that's okay
Right.
too. I'm all about science, but if you want to reach out to skilled personnel like you or I, um, that's okay too. But reach out to somebody.
Mhm. Mhm. I think when you talk about warnings, and I think I wrote you about this in my initial letter to you, was the investigation we did again out in Yolo County, and we went. I had seen this thing run down the hallway, the shadow of it, about the size of a penguin going down the hallway. And somebody else during the prelim had reported that it looked like a penguin with these red eyes. She was terrified, never came back. But I remember going into the master bedroom and doing an EVP session, and something told me to play that tape back. And all I heard was a voice saying, very clearly too, Gabriel, watch out. And all my spider sense went off, and I thought, this is an angel warning another angel about what this thing is in this house.
Interesting.
We are in over our heads. Off I went to clergy.
Interesting, very interesting. I've seen some of those shadow figures. I saw one that was bigger than I was, and it looked just like a
Mm-hmm.
large, solid, three-dimensional human figure, as
Mm-hmm.
if that person just climbed out of a vat of like tar or oil. That's how dark, and it was even semi oozing. Very scary. Those are
Mm-hmm.
very, very scary apparitions. You never forget them.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, yeah, you're lucky. That's a I want to go out on a limb and say that EVP is almost a blessed EVP. You
Yes.
know, you got
Yeah.
to hold on to that one. That's
Yeah,
like
I
a
still have it. Yeah,
That's
because
the
I mean, obviously, not only was he warning the Archangel Gabriel, but he was letting it be known on out loud for us to hear as well that they were there. And that's when I just went, okay, we're in over our heads. We got to figure something else out here. We're not going to deal with this. You know. Tell me about one of your cases. I mean, yeah, people want to hear that stuff. They like to be scared. Blah blah blah. But what case sticks that you've done sticks out the most for you as an exorcist?
well, it would have to be the very first one that got my wife and I into this field. She's a minister too. She's a Stephen minister with the Lutheran Church.
Mhm.
We went to go. I worked in a. I'm a veterinary technician by trade. I'm retired now, but I worked for 10 years at a veterinary referral center, and it was very haunted. They used to have me come in at night and during the night shift and investigate because things got so bad the night nurses didn't want to work in there the night shift in the ICU because it was just too scary. One of my coworkers there, she had just gotten married, and I'm not sure if she was into anything weird. Her husband was Indian,
Mhm.
and I don't know if he was into Native American, indigenous. I don't know if he was into anything weird, but something about her got something there at this hospital to attach to her, and it followed her home. Well, things started happening for her rather quickly, but she didn't reach out to me until they got really, really ugly.
Mhm.
She reaches out to me, and we go out for lunch one day, and she breaks down and she tells me I'm being raped by something that I can't see in the home. And it even happens in front of my husband. And when he tries to jump in to break it up, he comes under attack too. And the thing that really got my attention was he doesn't just get attacked, he gets raped also. So
Wow.
that was really, really scary. I said, yeah, my wife and I should come over and help.
Mhm.
But now my wife and I had never worked a case like this before. We didn't know what we were doing. If I could turn back the hands of time, I would, and I would have reached out to clergy and said, I
Mhm.
think someone of that walk of life should go there. Well, anyway, my
Mhm.
wife and I went. My wife just bought me this brand new, beautiful, full spectrum, high def video camera.
Mhm.
She said, read the instructions first before you use this. I don't want you to break it. I did, but we go to this home and I'm walking through, I got the viewfinder out and I'm walking through the living room and I don't see it with my eyes, but on my viewfinder, it looks like an angel standing in the middle of this living room. And here's the thing, this is how they trick you. They always come like an angel of light, but they could be
Mhm.
something much darker. I'm thinking that I'm seeing an angel because I'm a very religious person. I
Right.
decide to walk through this apparition and it feels like my breath got taken away from me. I turn around, I can't see it, but it's still on the viewfinder. So I decide to walk through the apparition again. And it sounded like somebody snapping their finger in my ear. My camera, feels like I get punched in the stomach, and my
Mhm.
camera just pops and it blows up. My wife can hear the camera blow up from another room. She comes running in there. She sees my camera smoking. She goes, "What did you do?" Thought I told you to learn how to use that before. I said I didn't do anything. I told her what happened. She sets the camera down. We bring the couple in. We tell them what just happened. She goes, "I've seen that apparition too." I set them down on the couch. My wife and I decide to use a Ouija board on the living room table and start to conjure this thing to communicate. And that didn't go well at all.
Mhm.
We hear what sounds like somebody, the couple are sitting across the room from us in a couch. They've got their arms around each other and they're watching. All of a sudden, it sounded like somebody behind the wall smashes it with a bat so loud that the couple just kind of launch in the air and sit back down. And then we started getting some very violent um, language thrown at us via the
Mhm.
Ouija board, and audibly you could hear "get out," things of that nature. So we decide that we're going to come back at a different time. None of my equipment will work. My batteries are being drained. I'm getting false readings. I can't trust my equipment. My wife and I decided we're going to go home. We're going to come back. It's about 3 o'clock in the morning. We're driving home, and my wife, her phone starts to ring. She's got caller ID, but there's no number on the phone. She says,
Mhm.
"Should I answer it?" Well, yeah, it might be the client. We'll go back if we have to. She answers the phone, nobody's there. I don't know if that's when it entered
Mhm.
our space, but things changed at that moment. We got home, and almost immediately, the two of us started to come under attack. Things started happening in the home. For about 2 months in my home, things were very, very ugly. Long story short, I reached out to the paranormal community for help. God bless them if they for once came through for me.
Mhm.
Introduced me to my then mentor, who's retired now. She was an ordained exorcist. She taught me how to fight this thing out of the home.
Mhm.
We were successful in getting it out of the home. But my wife, right after that, she comes home from work and she's talking to me like she's having a stroke.
Mhm.
And I'm like, "What's wrong with you?" She goes, "I think I broke a tooth and my tongue is rubbing on it and it's all infected." I
Mhm.
said, "Call the dentist, make an emergency appointment tomorrow to go see him." She goes. He said, "That's not what's happening in your mouth. I'm sending you to an ear, nose, and throat specialist." A couple of days later, we got an emergency appointment. We went to this other doctor. He took one look and he said, "You've got squamous cell carcinoma of the tongue." Our whole life changed. In a matter of just a couple of weeks, she had like this tennis ball size tumor on her tongue. She couldn't talk,
Wow.
couldn't even swallow water. That spread into her throat and became a rare form of throat cancer. That spread and became medullary thyroid cancer. That spread to lymph nodes in her throat. They were trying to take her out.
Mhm.
So I decided to leave the field and concentrate on trying to save my wife's life.
Mhm.
Um, she went about 8 months with not being able to talk or even being able to eat. She had a feeding tube in for over a year. Many, many radiation treatments, many surgeries, many, many chemo treatments. She wasn't expected to survive. Long story short, she is still here by divine intervention. She is still here with us. Thank you, Jesus.
Mhm.
But I wasn't going to get back in the field.
Mhm.
And one night, about 3 o'clock in the morning, my phone rings. I'm thinking my wife is going to die. That's how
Mhm.
bad this one night was. And I decided to leave the house and go to this all night prayer chapel where I crawled on my hands and knees all the way to the altar, threw myself on the altar, and laid there for about 2 hours talking to God. Save my, spare my wife, I'll do anything. I come back home. She's still alive. My phone's ringing. I answer it. It's a friend of mine who was a diehard atheist, and he happened to be in New York, and he was dying of advanced colon cancer. But I just spoke to him a few days before, and he sounded terrible.
Mhm.
So, but this phone call, he sounds great. And I said, "Russ, what's going on, brother?" He said, "I needed to call you because I just saw God, and God told me to tell you that your wife is going to live and you need to get back to fighting those responsible for her condition." Well, he died shortly after that, and he didn't lie to me. My wife after that phone call made a miraculous turnaround, and we get two full body CTs and MRIs done on her every year. No
Mhm.
signs of the disease anywhere in her body.
Mhm.
I decided to get back. God's calling me back to it. I decided to get back into it, and it's the very first case I work when I come back is a demonic case, a possession case, and I come under attack, a violent attack during
Mhm.
that case, and I decide to leave the field again.
Mhm.
I'm like, "God, I'm not cut out for this, man. I describe what happened to me in this case, and
Mhm.
colleagues of mine really believe that I died during this attack, and it was
Wow.
only due to divine intervention that I was brought back from this attack.
Mhm.
Um, and then I had another case where I had a vision of the Holy Spirit and a vision of Jesus Christ, and I knew, God's telling me, we have your back. This is what you're supposed to be doing. And so there you go. I still do this, but like I said, I kid you not. I wake up every morning and I pray that I don't have to perform another exorcism again.
Mhm.
And I just warn people all the time to be very careful because these things are very real. And I would love to just work a regular old disembodied human ghost case, But those cases don't come across my desk anymore. And if they do, I usually just refer them out to teams like your team
Mhm.
that know what they're doing and are very good at that type of case.
Mhm.
Because sometimes just me showing up can really scare people. And sometimes just me showing up, if the demonic is there, it can make things worse. I don't have to
Right.
provoke, just my presence is provocation enough. And
Mhm.
sometimes these people just thought it was a disembodied human spirit, but it was a lot worse. And
Mhm.
when I show up, things get a lot worse. And now
Mhm.
they're in the fight of their life. And you'd be surprised what people will, they're looking for someone to blame. When they were the ones, God bless them, they usually were the ones that caused the problem. Not always, but
Mhm.
usually. They're looking for someone to blame, a scapegoat, and you're the easy scapegoat. You're the
Mhm.
easy one to blame. So it is what it is.
Mhm.
But everybody out there watching this that thinks they want to be an exorcist, no, you don't. And if you want to take a demonology course and a theology course, go for it. And then when you pass this course, get a accredited one. When you
Mhm.
pass this course, talk to a bishop, talk to an ordained exorcist, um, have a talk with God, and see if you're actually truly being called to this. You may be, but
Mhm.
usually you're not. And I'm not trying to, pick on anybody, but
Right.
be careful.
How long does it take to conduct an exorcism? Because I mean, you see this stuff on TV, and this is what people don't realize. It's like with ghost hunting. They think we're going to get all our evidence, and then we're going to go home for 3 or 4 hours, and then come back, to present everything. How long can it take for an exorcism to happen from start to finish?
I've had people do what I tell them to do. Like, I have no magic powers. I can't walk in and wave a magic wand and make these things go away. A lot
Mhm.
of people don't realize they're the ones that truly have the power to draw their
Mhm.
line in the sand, circle the wagons, put up a good fight.
Mhm.
And if they buy into what I'm trying to sell, for lack of a better term, that's a terrible terminology. But if
Mhm.
if if they fight back, usually that's enough. But sometimes I can get the situation to turn around and not even ever have to go. But if I decide that the time comes where I have to go, there's some things that I do that work for me. And if I
Mhm.
show up at a home and it's truly demonically infested and there's people in there that are oppressed or, God forbid, possessed,
Mhm.
it can be high noon here in Vegas and I can look at the house and it looks like I'm looking at the home through sunglasses. So I already know. But when I get up to the door and I knock, before I enter the house, I get on my knees and I say some very special prayers. And I enter the house by crawling on my hands and knees across the threshold. Because for me, my main power is humility, which the
Mhm.
demonic are not capable of doing.
Mhm.
They're very prideful, and I try to show that I have no pride at all because I don't. I crawl on my hands and knees, and there's sometimes that's all it takes, and they leave. If they still are there after that, I line everybody up on the couch. They all take their shoes and socks off. I have a large basin that I fill with holy water, and I have everybody lay their feet in the holy water, and I wash their feet like Jesus did to the
Right.
apostles. And usually that's enough, and that gets everybody to go. If one of them is possessed, I usually know because they won't allow me to put their feet in the holy water. So that's another little trick I do. Then I have key phrases that I can say to people that I can tell are probably very oppressed, uh, maybe possessed. I have trigger phrases that I can say in their ear to them that the demonic just can't handle, and they will manifest at that time. But usually, sometimes that's all it takes
Mhm.
is those few little things, and they can go. Now, having said that, I have assisted in and taken authority over exorcisms. Some of them last 2 hours. Some of them last all day. I've been on some that have lasted months where I've gone back 2 or 3 times a week for months until finally we were able to bring closure to that case. So it varies. It all depends on the severity of the case, why the demonic attached and entered that person's world, and if the people are doing what you are asking them to do to help you fight. That's the key. If they don't, you can't do it on your own. You need the family support system there because the demonic are trying to break that family unit up. You need them to come together as a unit and everybody help you fight. And if they do that, things can turn out well. If you are getting someone in the house can be totally against what you're trying to do and not even show it. Behind the scenes they're against you, and that will prevent things from getting better.
Question in the chat room is, what is the most common type of possession?
Oh, there is no common type. It's they're all different. I haven't worked one possession case that was similar to another. They're all different, and there's so many different ways. Uh, okay, I get people that ask me all the time, why would somebody who goes to confession, goes to mass, receives Holy Communion, and they're a good person, why would that person get possessed? Well, I've worked cases like that, and for this is how I'll describe it, and I could be totally wrong here, but this is what I feel in my heart. Someone close to that person, God knew that that person would be able to survive that possession. That God already knew that that person was going to meet me, that I was going to help them fight, but there was somebody close to that person that needed to not only see how ugly the demonic and how evil the demonic could be in watching their loved one go through that, and then that person needed to see and witness how glorious God can be when the divine intervention takes place and that person gets delivered from that possession. Somebody close to that person needed to witness that to change their life around. So it can be as simple as that, but there is no they're all different. And that's why I tell people just be careful. People you can buy an antique item that has an attachment.
Right.
I worked a case where this Muslim couple, the woman was obsessed with lamps. I know this is going to sound silly, but her husband said he called it a jinn, but a jinn is a demon. She was actually rubbing the lamp, cleaning the lamp, and he said he could just tell the change came over her like that. And she actually exhibited signs of a classic possession. We actually did an exorcism for lack of knowing what else to do. We performed an exorcism on her and her home and her property, and God bless, it worked. But I wasn't sure what we were up against because he called it a jinn. They were Muslim. They their church wouldn't help them. That's why they reached out to us. Because I said, why are you reaching out to a Catholic priest? I worked a possession case with a girl who was Jewish. She said, I knew nobody else to reach out to. My church wouldn't help me. I didn't know who else to reach out to. I know you're Catholic. Can you help me even though I'm Jewish? Well, it just so happens I knew a Messianic Jewish exorcist. And I know a lot of people out there are like, huh? Messianic Jews happen to believe that Jesus was the Son of God or God. And there are Messianic Jewish exorcists. And him and I worked this case together. And it was a beautiful thing to watch him do that. And it was many things that they did were similar to the Latin rite, but many things were much different. But that worked for that case because she was Jewish and buying into the to her belief system with the rabbi was what she needed. But he also needed somebody holy there with him to help assist on that. So they're never the same, and I wouldn't call any of them common.
Mhm.
But one thing they do all have in common, unlike a disembodied human spirit haunting, a demonic presence, they're out to kill someone. It's a matter of life and death.
Mhm.
And I can't even adequately put it into words the hatred these things have for us. It would be silly for me to try, but the hatred they have for us is off the charts. And when they
Mhm.
are present, they've targeted somebody to extinguish their life and capture their soul. And that's what makes them so different than any other type of case.
When you look at these movies like The Exorcist, for instance, is it possible that when you're exercising, that sounds terrible, he's not exercising them, he's doing his right, exorcism, that you can get into a situation like that priest did, where he says, "Don't, leave her, take me, take me, take me." I mean, have you ever run into stuff like that at all?
It's funny you bring that up. One of the episodes in the show was an
Mhm.
episode just like that. And the gentleman that did that was a pastor, and he
Mhm.
thought that he called me into it because he thought his oldest son was possessed.
Mhm.
And it turned out he was the one that was possessed. And during my ritual of washing everybody's feet in the holy water, the unclean spirit eventually manifested through him. But when peeling the layers away and doing my investigation and interviewing him after the fact, we found out that a couple of cases prior to that, he worked a demonic case. And during the possession and the exorcism, it was on a young boy, a very young boy. He asked the demon, in a moment of weakness, he asked the demon to enter him, get out of the boy and enter him. And that didn't end well at all. And so
Mhm.
I'm glad to say thank you, Jesus, that my pastor friend is still with us.
Mhm.
But there's nothing the demonic love more than to bring a Catholic priest or a pastor or a
Right.
minister down. We've got the biggest. We all have wanted posters of us
Mhm.
hanging in hell, and we just have to keep our head on a swivel and always try to stay in as much of a state of grace as we can all the
Mhm.
time
Mhm.
because we're
Mhm.
always under attack.
Now, for a person that thinks they might be under attack, how is there a way for someone who is under attack to tell that they're under attack, or does that come from maybe somebody that you know well is watching your personality change?
We usually, in my experience, people they have night terrors and they wake
Mhm.
up and then the night terrors leave physical evidence on them, like you
Mhm.
mentioned, having scratches. They'll either
Mhm.
have bruised handprints or scratches or other bad bruises, um, hair missing like it got pulled out.
Mhm.
If you're having night terrors that are extremely violent, or these interdimensional beings are taking you, astral projecting you to other worlds, or having either very violent or sexual, extremely violent in a sexual way type night terrors, and you
Mhm.
wake up and there's physical evidence on you, you should probably reach out to somebody for some help. Not to say that you might be doing it to yourself. I know people
Mhm.
who have had violent night terrors and that's all they were, and they hurt themselves or they
Mhm.
sleepwalk and hurt themselves during sleepwalking. You gotta don't wait until it's too late. Reach out for
Mhm.
help. Um, then there's always, and you know this, sometimes
Mhm.
people can have these haunts where they get poked, they get their hair pulled, they get
Right.
pushed. You don't want to get pushed at the top of a staircase. Ghosts can kill. Extremely old, malevolent acting, disembodied human spirits can inflict harm, bodily harm on people. So if you feel you are under attack, don't wait. Reach out for somebody for some help.
Mhm. Mhm. Um, Once you perform an exorcism, is there a process that you go through to rid yourself of the energy, or once it's gone, it's gone?
This is the scary part.
Mhm.
Once they're gone, I spend as much time as I need to to make sure the people that were involved know whatever you did, and maybe you didn't do anything, but if you did do something that caused this,
Mhm.
whatever that was, if you do it again and they come back,
Mhm.
you probably won't be able to get help because it'll be that ugly and that bad. They will come back with help. It'll be way worse. They'll be very much more stronger, and you just have to change your life around. Sometimes people aren't ready to change their life around, and it could be as simple as alcohol abuse, drug
Mhm.
abuse. Here in Vegas, I work a lot of cases where they started off. I'm going to get hate mail. They started off as strippers. They ended up becoming prostitutes or whores,
Mhm.
um, and that was the big gateway to the demonic. That type of behavior.
Mhm.
So they need to sometimes there's a lot of counseling that takes place prior to me even attempting to do anything on the spiritual level because they need to know you can't just go back to the way things were. If I'm
Mhm.
able to help you and I make things better, you have to be ready and convince me that you're ready, that you're going to change your life around, or
Mhm.
the next time I might not be able to help and it's going to be way worse.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This hour went by so fast. I'm so thankful for you for coming on.
I'll come back. Well, you need to
Absolutely.
come on my show. Will you come on my show?
I'll come on your show. I'll do your show.
I would love
Sure.
to talk. I haven't sat down and had a nice talk with somebody like you who's got a really cool team and has a lot of ghost stories to tell. I haven't done that in a long time. I just got graduated the seminary. I just got ordained to the priesthood. Trying to
Mhm.
enjoy being a priest, but all of these cases keep coming in.
Mhm.
I'm gonna really jump into the demonology and theology, and I've got all these exorcism tapes that Bishop Long has sent me, which I feel honored that he relinquished them to me. So things are going to get uh, pretty heavy for me here very quickly.
Mhm.
I would love to have that type of conversation with you. It would be very refreshing. And my
Absolutely.
show's on Fridays at 2 in the
Mhm.
afternoon. I don't know if that works for you.
I can do that. Yeah,
Um,
that's not a problem.
and I'm always booked out 2 or 3 months in advance. I'll get back to you after
Okay.
tonight, throw a date at you, but I'll come back anytime. I had a great time tonight, but I'd love to have you on mine and we'll just talk shop.
Sounds good. We have a question coming up in the chat room really fast. Go ahead, Venge. Is it Veng? Vengeance. Okay. So do your question now because we're shutting down. Okay. Well. Okay. I guess not. Yeah, I would love to do that. I would love to have you come on again because there's so many questions I have about what you do. Because if I know more about what you do, it helps me with what I do. When I go out and I end up having to get a referral or get the church involved, it helps me to know, what things I have to do to get to that point. With my
Tell people
clients.
I do before we go. I do have
Okay.
books on my website. If somebody's interested in reading about that kind of stuff, be careful. Say a prayer before you read the book, during the reading, and after you're done reading it, say some more prayers. But I've got
Mhm.
books on my website, and all the proceeds, well, not all the proceeds, but most of the proceeds from sales of the books go to support stjude.org, St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, Nevada, and the ASPCA. So you get to help some of the neediest children on the planet and the animals too. And if anybody's interested in this type of stuff, you'll find plenty of that in both my books.
How can people find you?
www.ghost-b-gone.biz. That's my website. I'm Lawrence Maurice
Mhm.
on Facebook. That's a stage name, but Father Shawn Whittington is on there too, so you know you got the right guy. Um, so my church is usocc.org. That's the church I
Mhm.
belong to, United States Old Catholic Church. We have night prayer every night, Bible study twice a week. I'm also a member of the Society of St. Benedict, and we help the paranormal community with malevolent cases for the church. So I'm easy to find. And if you like the show, you can go to the Travel Channel website, go to their comment section, and put in a review for the show and ask for them to go to a season 2.
Okay, cool. Here's our last question that just came in. Are there any protection prayers that you would recommend?
Absolutely. Please send me a private message on Facebook if you can. Tell you what, and if you can't, this is a great book here. You can get it online.
Okay, cool.
Deliverance Prayers for Clergy and the Laity. That this book, I never leave home without it. Although I usually have my Saint Benedict prayer book with me,
Mm-hmm.
and my I have special Bibles that every page you open up to, it's just quotes that Jesus said. Because during an exorcism, sometimes I like to crack open that Bible and
Mm-hmm.
just quote scripture, but quote what Jesus says. So that's a great book full of really heavy duty protection prayers in there. A lot of prayers can only be said by clergy. So you've
Mm-hmm.
got to be careful too. I've got other books that I can't recommend because they're prayers that
All right.
only clergy can say.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you very much, and I hope you have a great rest of your evening. And yeah, let's
You
set
too,
this.
Charlotte. God
Let's
bless you too. I'll add you to the prayer list, and I can't wait for us to do this again.
absolutely have a great one.
Take care.
Bye bye. Fantastic. I just had so much to ask him and wanted to learn so much from him. Like I said, I like learning from those guys. Tomorrow, 4th of July is coming for everybody over in the United States. It's our Independence Day, from Great Britain, from England. And so I decided to read, normally like on Sundays I've been reading, Bram Stoker's Dracula was this last Sunday. Well, I've been digging around at Gutenberg again, freebie books, how I am. And I found an interesting book, and it's called Women of the American Revolution. And I'm going to be off tomorrow, but I did do a read ahead of time. It's a pre-record for tomorrow because I have some stuff I have to do tomorrow night. So it's going to be the first chapter of Women of the American. I'm reading this over here on the side. Women of the American Revolution by Elizabeth F. Elliot. Interesting book. Of course, it's another one that was written, and actually it was written in 1900. But what's interesting about this is, like I read the preface for you guys and everything. You'll find out that a lot of the people that she interviewed were still alive after the war, so she was able to get more information on these women. And it's interesting to see what the women. I mean, you hear things, and like even Betsy Ross, right, making up the flag and all this. You hear things, but it's these other women that you've never heard their names before, which is kind of cool. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Like I said, I'll probably be on chat tomorrow. I don't know for sure, but I have some stuff I have to do tomorrow night, so I had to take tomorrow night off. But be ready for that 6:30 p.m. Pacific for the first chapter of Women in the American Revolution. And then on the 4th of July, of course, because we're all going to be out setting off fireworks and whatnot, I did the second read for it, and those are the next 2 chapters in that book. But I think you'll enjoy it. I think it's a different take on the American Revolution, so I think you'll enjoy it. And I want to emphasize also, I have cousins, I have relatives over in England and all that, and you know what? It's Independence Day, so I don't want anybody to take to take this book the wrong way or anything like that. But it's just our Independence Day, so just bear with it, and maybe you might even like the stories that are in there. Okay, if you like the show, share it with 5 people. If you hated the show, share it with 5 of your enemies. We are equal opportunity here, California Haunts Radio. Just trying to get the word out, and you guys have done a fantastic job doing that. And I want to thank the chat room. I want to thank Marisa. I want to thank Jerry. I want to thank Michelle. I want to thank Vengeance, who's over at Twitch. And I want to thank everybody else who watched tonight. And I'm going to thank ahead of time for the RSS feed, because once I get done with this, I'm going to upload this thing over to RSS. I want to thank them for listening to the shows as well. All right? So I will see you live on Wednesday, and then tomorrow I will again it's already been pre-recorded. Women of the American Revolution, and I think you'll enjoy it because a little tantalizing thing. The first woman I'm going to read about has to do with George Washington, and it's not who you think it is. Okay, that's your hint for tomorrow night. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I will see you tomorrow. Well, I will see you live Wednesday, and hopefully I'll see you in the chat room tomorrow if I have time to get in the chat room. Otherwise, have a great evening, and bye.